tuve una caída en mi carrera, pero he vuelto más fuerte que nunca.
Pero ojo con Supa, va a reventar a Marlon. Se atreve ahora con el 1 contra FLICKR. No debería de ganar el tetón.
J'ai progressé une étape à la fois jusqu'à arriver au sommet.
Maintenant qui est dans la mêlée. Et la côte de Rogan, elle est magnifique du côté d'ADC.
Ich weiß, ich kann der Beste sein. Jetzt muss ich es nur allen zeigen.
Für ihn wird sogar noch mehr ein Triple für ihn. Der Quadra-Kill für Kinui.
선택할 수 있는 길이 많았습니다. 저는 지금 걷고 있는 길이 옳다고 확신합니다.
No a wszyscy tutaj na gotowe. Nie odbierajmy. Pentakill jak najbardziej zasłużony.
Orada 0 bir değişim. Ayakta kalan son isim Neramin.
uzun zamandır bekliyordum. Şimdi benim zamanım.
Welcome, one and all, back to the EMEA Masters. I am Just Ushi, and I'm joined by the notorious Nightmare, and hopefully be getting all the Ari information out of you today. But we're coming into this, our final day of the tournament groups.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone so quickly. We have so many games being played, and we're getting around to our very last round robins of the last two remaining groups, which are yet to finish off. We have done Group A and Group D. So, by process elimination, Groups B and C playing out today.
Yeah, we can kind of look quickly at what we did get to see yesterday and kind of get a couple of highlights there, because it was a little bit of a day of kind of like minor upsets. Definitely set up the last few games to be a bit spicier than a lot of people were anticipating.
For sure. I think particularly when you look at teams like Nautilus and Matchko having really good first-round robins, it's put these expectations of these groups into a bit of question. When we've got these big LFL teams, these big TCL teams coming into things, it has added like something else into the equation. Now, sadly, of course, for Nautilus, Famagosta, they could not finish themselves off with a group stage exit. It would have been incredibly historic for their region, but they gave it a damn good shot. And that has been actually probably the story of the first half of groups.
Yeah, and look, unfortunately there for the NLC, it's your old stomping grounds. Riddle just on the screen there, not quite having the kind of setup they needed to kind of carry that region into quarters.
Yeah, of course, SK Prime will be going out of groups with Team GO from the LFL as well. So Prime League and LFL getting their own teams out of groups. And for the first time since, I believe it's summer 2020, the NLC will not have a representative in the knockout stage. So feels like, we're coming into a new era. Of course, we've moved away from EU Masters. It's EMEA Masters now. We have the larger catchment kind of group for that. And it feels like there's times are changing outside of that too in regards to some of these regions starting to really come up with some huge games. And as we said, despite not making it out into those knockout stages, Team GO, they did lose a game to Nautilus Famagusta. So even though GLL don't leave with their own representative into the knockout stages, they've brought some really big games to bear and something that their fans can really be proud of.
Absolutely, and it does also mean that LDLC OL are also the only team left that can go undefeated in the group stage for the moment. They are 3-0 as they come into the final day, but I love how they keep showing that highlight of Blue Resort missing the smite on the Rift Herald and getting himself caught out with 1 HP. It's so mean. It's so mean.
I'm starting to think that you really like seeing these misfortunate events.
It's funny, though. It's really funny. And look, no harm, no foul. They do end up winning that game, regardless of what happened there. And it did set up a massive fight between the Istanbul Wildcats and, of course, Los Heretics for that top spot, which Istanbul Wildcats were able to take in 45 minutes. It was full builds across the board.
Yeah, and we have this TCL team coming out and showing what this region is made of. Los Heretics, of course, they are a team which are the current reigning champions of this tournament. They're going to finish 4-2 again from that group stage, same as they did last summer, so maybe looking to revisit the history in their own way, but they couldn't see it off against the Wildcats coming in and really starting to brutalize some of these teams, showing what mechanically they're made of.
Yeah, and this was the final kind of almost like tiebreaker that wasn't a tiebreaker, regular season match in that group that obviously, of course, SK Prime kind of brought themselves in. It was actually interesting as well. We were talking to Favibin afterwards, and he was very honest, very frank about how they are performing, how he is performing. He's saying, look, it's not to the level we expect. It's not something that we will expect to be able to win going forward with. And we're just glad that we got to quarters to hopefully now build off of what can potentially be a little bit easier, especially in a best of 5 where you can adapt.
Yeah, best of five is very, very different kind of beast. And, you know, there are players like Febiven who he's retired and come back from retirement several times, and he holds himself to such high standards. That's something which we see with a lot of players, though. We have some fresh blood which really want to shoot towards the top of the tree. They have higher things to aspire to. And even some of these older players as well, they've found success before, or even they're on a longer road and still looking for that first success. You can tell what this tournament means to a lot of these players as we go through it.
Absolutely, and we can have a look at the full screen of the standings and kind of see exactly where everyone is, just because, again, we're all talking about this, but it's always better to have a visual representation. Group A, Group D are done and dusted. They have got themselves a team, and funny enough, and it's always something I love to see, different flags across the board, different teams, different organizations, and no one from the same league coming into the quarterfinals just yet.
And of course, as you can see, a couple of the numbers a little bit higher than the others. Group A, Group D, those are the final standings. We will have Istanbul Wildcats, Los Heretics, Team Geo, and SK Prime leaving from their respective groups. We haven't quite figured out who's coming through from Group B and Group C. Couple of crazy results in there already, though. Two French teams with two completely opposite scorelines. Aegis at 0-3, LDLC at 3-0.
Yeah, that's the big one now coming in today. I think Aegis are definitely kind of having a little bit of a... They kind of resurgence, I think, in the LFL. Won a hell of a lot of games in a row right at the end of the season, then kind of fell a little bit too much. Yeah, they had to, and then they kind of reaping the rewards with having so many seeds. But we are going to have our schedule. This is going to be our the first three games are the ones that we're going to be covering here in Group B before we move on to Group C. But of course, there are games happening across the board, regardless of what group you're looking at.
So as you said, on this stream, what you will see here is the games that were just on screen there. So we're doing the first half of our day in Group B before we switch over to Initialize and Jamada to take you through Group B at the end of that, as we cover Group C at the start of it. But of course, as you're saying, two games happening at the same time. If you want to catch those games, go look on the LoL Esports website or go find one of these other streams which are showing the games.
Yeah, well, we can kind of focus ourselves in now into group number C and letter C, as we kind of look and see where these kind of go for. And as you mentioned earlier, LDLC coming in as pre-tournament favorites, riding high, 3-0, feeling pretty good right now.
Absolutely. LDLC, a team which has now won 3 back-to-back LFL splits, despite not winning this kind of title for quite a while in terms of this organization. In the recent era of French dominance, LDLC historically have picked up a title here at EMEA Masters before, looking to leave groups strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about them a little bit later. We got to talk about maybe two teams that are in very much a desperate need of a win. We're going to be coming in here for eSuba and, of course, Orbit Anonymo. So these are two guys that I really do, or two teams, I should say, that really do need to start hitting the ground running. And I guess, you know, the best place to start is, you know, start from the bottom, get to the top, because eSuba need a win if they want to try and keep themselves anyway relevant, because they're already on 0-3.
Yeah, and they made their way through the play-in stage. Typically, there is a team which has a play-ins buff at some point in this tournament. I think it's every tournament we have had at EMEA Masters. A team from play-ins has made it through into the knockout stage. So there can be some bonuses to have from that, but eSuba would be a long way up that mountain were they to try and claim something back. Currently sat at 0-3. And their first game against Orbit Anonymo was quite a difficult one. They tried to match scaling with scaling, and it didn't quite work because that man, in the most majestic of garbs, Neramin on the AD carry role, did such a good job on the Xayah alongside the likes of the Chef and the top lane Hiro, coming up with some great solo kills.
Absolutely, and look, you can't not love a guy who kind of takes himself into a situation like this and just kind of puts himself forward.
Imagine if we could all dress like this every day.
You can. You just got to have the confidence. You just got, and the culture. I think it's a bit cultural appropriation if you're not from that particular style of things. But I mean, the big game coming up now. They got to try and go for it. And look, yes, there's a lot of complaints about best of ones. People might complain about, you know, the style of it. You can get caught out by something. You got to beat the best to be the best. And regardless of the tournament format, if you do not win, you do not deserve to go through. So right now, this is just how it is. Best of one. Bring your best foot forward. Otherwise, you know, you can't have no one else but yourself to blame.
And one of my big takeaways from these two teams' first games against each other was the fact that eSuba kind of tried to match Orbit and Anonymo in their strengths. Was watching a couple of videos put out on YouTube by Solari, who kind of ran down these teams from the Ultra Liga as one of the casters of that region. It was pretty obvious what they were saying. They go for late game team fights. Let Hiro do the early game stuff. And that's kind of what we saw, especially in that game. So if we can tell that, if you can tell that at first glance, you can tell that from the champion pools, obviously these other teams do know that as well. So eSuba, they see that, they matched fire with fire, tried to go towards late game scaling, and then got outfought in the late game. I don't want to see them do that again, or if they're going to, just go ultra scaling with something which actually outscales, rather than matching like Seraphine with Viktor. You can't match fire with fire. They're far too confident with that, because this is exactly what happened with that. This was about as good as it got in terms of this highlight reel for eSuba. They had one fight which almost went well for them. This is about as good as it gets, because you look at how Neramin plays out this fight as well. It was incredibly effective. Very good positioning from the AD carry and mid laner of Orbit Anonymo, and turns out feathers do cut rather hard, because Neramin pulled off plays like this.
Woo. Ow. Holding that trigger very well right towards the end there. But again, like, you know, these are little small things that happen. You saw that eSuba went in with an idea, but then they didn't really fully commit towards the end. They were half kind of going in, half backing away, and then didn't really fully commit to how they want to try and take that fight. And full, you know, credit to Anonymo is that they just kind of said, cool, well, we're far more cohesive in how we want to play this game. We're going to take this fight to you.
Yeah, and I really love that you brought that up, because one of the other things I walked away from this game was that eSuba, they had like a good step 1 of every plan. Step 2, 3 onwards, they weren't quite there in the same way. It did feel like it was a cohesiveness kind of thing, which is, again, why I'm looking at this game now and saying, eSuba, you're going to come at it with the same kind of strategy again. Of course, you had those team fights go against you, and then Hiro, once it got to the late game as well, he's known as the chef in the top lane. Let him cook memes. They run with that. That's their running joke there as well. But he can do the basics well as well.
I think that's a running joke for everybody. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. That's not the most original joke I've heard this year. I'm going to be real.
It's a little bit different when he's playing like Annie top, Lee Sin top, Mordekaiser top as well. He does have some weird stuff, but then it's like he has those, but then also plays the basics well. So it feels like, particularly in that top lane role, that was like an individual difference between bobista, who also has a huge history within the ERL scene as well. But again, like, everything kind of boils down to they were less cohesive and they tried to match the enemy's strengths. I want to see eSuba make this game about their strengths rather than matching eSuba's. Orbit Anonymous, rather.
Yes, we'll see what they're able to kind of do. Of course, the sides will be soft, so eSuba will get themselves the first pick priority should they want to kind of go for it. And again, we're kind of seeing the same kind of bans coming out for pretty much everybody across this patch, regardless if it's Annie top or mid or even support. You want to get that off the board. It's just too good of an instant engage that you just have to try and take it away. It's too easy to set everything up.
Yeah, and now I'm wondering what's going to happen with something like Rel, FGG. I've cast this guy for years. I cast him his very first competitive game, so there's kind of like a personal note there from FGG. Played in the UK amateur scene back all those years ago in 2021. He's a big Rel player. That's what it kind of comes back to. He's played an awful lot of it. Doesn't matter whether it's meta or not. Typically that gets banned, but it is available here. So Orbit Anonymo say, actually, you know, we banned that out in our first match, but we don't have to care about it this time.
Yeah, they don't have to really kind of go for it. I do think the Vi, a lot of jungle, honestly, focus coming out here from Orbit Anonymo, and they kind of say, look, yep, eSuba recognize it completely, and they say, right, well, we're going to take what we feel is the most strong, the strongest, I should say, jungler left on this particular patch, so they're going to go for the Wukong. Plenty of options that you can go into this. The Lee Sin is a very common answer. It gives you such powerful skirmishing pre-level 6.
It also means that both of these champions have a very strong mid-jungle 2v2 as well. And with something like Annie taken off the table, I mean, we cast the LPL. We know what Annie does out there. We love our Annie mids there too. It's just kind of, you see the Vi taken away, you see the Annie taken away, and you think, okay, what's left that's still really good at playing through mid-jungle? What we saw between these two teams last time as well was the Lee Sin and the Xin Zhao kind of traded off in terms of who's going to have that that kind of jungle early game power to make sure that your scaling carries have something kind of holding up the early game for them. And we have these scaling carries again. Zaya's off the table, so Neramin will not get to reprise that performance, but we do get DANY back on that Zeri.
I love that we're seeing that this kind of weird adaptation for a lot of people, where it's like, it's not the Rakan that's busted, it's the Xayah that's busted, and that's the one that's getting banned. Even though I would argue, coming, you know, obviously looking at international level, the Rakan looks pretty damn strong in all senses of the word. But the jungles and the bot lanes have been locked in. We are going to have to wait and see where these next few bans will go. I would love to see heavy focus coming into the mid lane here for Orbit Anonymo, and just kind of say, look, we got first rotation, we can still get that counter pick into top.
Well, and the thing for me is that I would almost say, because Roison did such a good job in their first game, of basically just saying, well, Warszi, I don't care what you play, I have my own champion pool as well. I wonder if you can just not ban out as many and just pick towards that scaling. I like this. Last time it came towards scaling versus scaling, so Roison saying, no, you're not going to have any of your proactive picks, particularly if you're going to play towards Wukong with another proactive mid laner. And on the other side, eSuba is saying, well, if you're going to remove our proactive options, let's remove some of your scaling options.
See what they want to try and go for. Again, kind of more meta into the more pocket picks being kind of taken away by both of these sides respectfully. And I think there's going to be a lot more. Yeah, I was going to say the Lissandra kind of comes to my mind as something that would be very good at just stopping the Lee Sin and the Nautilus from getting on top of the Zeri. Veigar as well does have a very good part in the meta right now, so lots of mid lane focus coming out here for both these sides. Now we get to see what both these teams need to finish their compositions off with.
Well, notably, Warszi still has Jace available, actually a very strong early champion as well, into a lot of different matchups. Again, that's happened in both mid lane and top lane. See now the hovers over a different couple of champions for Orbit Anonymo solo lanes. They're going to go towards that Viktor, say, okay, scaling mages, some of them are off the table, but absolutely not all of them. Now I'm wondering maybe something like a Talir could come out, could have that. A couple of other kind of scaling options as well. Maybe something like a Syndra, that's typically been okay, versus the Viktor as well. Both of those champions are within Warszi's. That's a lot of hovers. You know, I'm not commenting on any of them.
I was going to say, you know what? You don't need to say anything, because we're going to have to wait for it to be locked in regardless.
Very different, though. We have the Camille coming through. Now, Galio got buffed on this patch as well. That's going to be the lock-in, hyper-engage, some top-side play. And last time, Hiro was solo-killing bobista. Actually, he was solo-killing Warszi as well. So now he looks at both those solo laners and go, oh no, they've got an ultimate which brings one to the other. That makes things a little bit difficult. This has been Ragnar's answer, that Olaf which was hovered, just saying, if you're going to dive onto me, I'm going to kill the both of you while I've got Ragnarok running. That could potentially be one thing, but it's the Cookadapter's business again. Mordekaiser means you go in for that 2v1. It's not a 2v1, it's a death round 1v1.
Yeah, absolutely. Gives you a lot of safety in that top side once you're able to get access to that ultimate. And for eSuba, they got themselves a triple Venn diagram of death coming in right now. You've got the Hextech ultimatum, of course, the Hero's entrance, and the Cyclone kind of creating this kind of area of you cannot go here right now. So gonna be curious to see now how Orbit and Anonymo kind of deal with this and keep their carry safe, because there's a lot that can just jump onto this Jinx and Viktor, and outside of their flashes, they have no way out.
Yeah, that's going to have to be really well warded out, I think, actually. I think what could really solve this game is actually if you get push in from a side lane from Orbit Anonymo when they have maybe Mordekaiser with a winning lane, he can be someone that's hard to engage onto, which means that eSuba can't shut him down as well. You push in through the Mordekaiser, maybe that gives you enough map control and enough vision to keep your carries safe.
And looking at these two compositions again, like we're obviously moving very heavily into scaling AD carries. We have been for quite a few patches, to be perfectly honest. You know, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Well.
Yeah, I was going to say, they got nerfed so hard, everything else just came back with scaling. But I do like what you've got coming in here from eSuba, because it does feel like a lot of the times when we get to these kind of, you know, a little bit more kind of front-to-back team fights, he who has more engage wins. He who has the easier time to kind of maybe make a couple of mistakes with their initial engage and then still catch like, people out.
You know,
it feels better.
You know in Game of Thrones you have like the family mottos? Would that be like
yes.
Asheen, he who has more engaged wins.
He who has more engaged wins. That's just kind of how I work. I mean, it does. It kind of puts the burden of execution onto Orbit and Anonymo. They have to try and find hooks. They have to get Lee Sin kicks in. They can't really just kind of pick anyone and go in all at once.
I do like this though, because again, kind of revisiting what happened in the first game between these two teams, it was scaling versus scaling, and guess what? You know, the team which played more scaling on the whole was more comfortable with it and ended up winning out on it.
He who scales wins.
He who scales wins. Well, hasn't that been something which has been revisited over time, but a bit more early game playmaking from the side of eSuba, looking to pick up their first win.
And we're going to play a new game. It's, you cannot see the items, and you have to guess based on how they're performing.
Like Lodal, but with like CS numbers and
you gotta keep a tally of all the dragons, all the things you got. It's like Wordle, but you got to figure it out based on like like sounds and how much damage they're doing. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited for it. It's the test to see how good we are as casters. You know.
Play the guessing game. I mean. If there's something I could do that as like a daily training regimen, maybe that could work. Maybe
I used to have like flashcards, and on the back they used to have the champion, and and on the front of it they would have like all their abilities, how much they did, was it ADAP and stuff like that. And I used to get my friends to test me on it, basically, to kind of like, hey, what's this, what's that, you know, this person, go, and I'd have to go. That's how I learned. I spent many hours doing that.
So I kind of upset Chakras a little bit on the LEC. I say upset. I'm not sure if he's upset, but I was invited onto one of the LEC.
No, he's not upset. Upset's on Vitality.
Crazy. But he wasn't part of this one. But the way that I trained for LEC Pop Quiz was through these Sporacle kind of ability quizzes, and you can do them multiple ways. Either they give you the ability name or the champion and the letter, and then you have to guess the name of the ability. That is really broken in terms of trying to get yourself more familiar with them. However, back to the game, in terms of familiarity with champions, with these team compositions, it does seem to be, once again, Orbit and Anonymo fairly consistent with what they want to play towards. It's typically been towards scaling carries for Roison and Neramin, and a bit more early game presence from Savero and Hiro.
See what they want to try and work for here. Again, not really expecting much kind of crazy shenanigans for the first few levels and kind of everyone happy thing. I will say the Wukong has got plenty of CC to work with in the lanes. One of the things I always look for, especially in the early game with a Wukong jungle, is that pre-6 he doesn't really have a lot of things to help you to set up CC or anything like that. So unless someone's very far overextended, they're not really going to be getting caught out. But you do have the hook shot, wall shot, and of course the Shield of Durand here from the Galio. You've got plenty of ways of kind of setting things up in those lanes in top and mid. So curious to see there if TynX can get himself into a solid position to capitalize on that or not. Will be slightly faster on his clear right now, and it's kind of the way things are. The Lee Sin, though, not going to be too much of a slouch himself, should be able to kind of pick up the pace himself as he comes into a more single target camps.
So have to see really what happens in regards to that in terms of junglers, because again, as much as we have these early game junglers, one of the things which we picked up in that first game, which you'll notice we're referring back to quite a lot because it's quite relevant, early game junglers in that game only really kind of maintained vision. It came around just about the first Herald, kind of second Dragons coming into it where we first saw those first big fights, but early game from the junglers it was less about real explosive plays and a little bit more about Czypsy trying to get in. Nice dodge away.
Yep. No real kind of clear-cut chance there. I think he probably was going to be safe, to be perfectly honest there, unless he gets hit by the gravity well at the end of it. He's not really going to be kind of losing anything else off the back of it. We'll say, yeah, the Camille's going to take a hell of a lot of things. You got to be so careful when going into a Mordekaiser. It can feel like you're more powerful, but with the shield, the healing he gets from that off the second activation, there's an awful lot more HP to a Mordekaiser than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's the Invincible gives you a lot of ability to kind of regen through. Of course, Camille had a lot of nerfs over time, used to be one of the very powerful, most powerful top laners. But I think ever since the durability nerfs, a lot of durability patch update rather, a lot of her lane matchups changed quite a lot. She used to be kind of take in one heavy trade, and then the second trade could really be a kill trade after that point. Not really the case nowadays. Savero going to go see those Raptors taken away. Roison not really able to respond this time.
Yeah, not quite able to kind of do it, and for the moment, everything is quiet in this game. Remember, this is kind of a big one here for eSuba. It's not 100% guaranteed that they're out if they lose it, but it's definitely not a good start in the game as DANY does take a hell of a trade, and top lane, flash for flash! Bobista gets himself the kill. They do trade it back on the bot side, so it's a 1-for-1. There's action across the board here, Nymera.
There is so. Junglers do actually get involved in this time around, but it's Neramin picking up the kill, and Neramin has been both majestic in dress and majestic on the Rift as well when he's had a lead. Pulls on both of these AD carries with the extra gold onto the Jinx. Absolutely no slouch. We've said that the Jinx might find it hard to survive the engage from eSuba as the game goes on. But if they're ahead, Neramin has definitely put his name on the table as someone who's very good at using those resources. Yeah,
and the funny thing is as well, we didn't actually see any flashes being burned on that bot side. It was just straight up, you know, FGG just kind of accepting, look, I've been caught. There's no point in wasting this. I can use this far better. And look, I do like this. I like the idea of kind of accepting your fate. There's no point in flashing if you don't need to, but have a look at the replay here. We'll see where we kind of start off with. It's just at the top side. You can see Hiro. He just wants to try and get the wave crash, yeah.
Yeah, it's a wave crash. One jungler's there. The other one isn't. So, bit of a miscommunication between Hiro and Savero on that top side. TynX gets himself into the fray. It's a pretty good death's grasp, actually, from Hiro to make sure that a flash has to be burned. But at the end of the day, kill still goes over. And one jungler is in the place. The other one is not really there.
Of course, the trade back in that bot side is very important as well, so we can wait to see kind of where they all want to try and go for it. But could be early kind of pressure, you would imagine, from Orbit. Anonymo.
Orbit Anonymo. It's like
Anonymo.
It's slightly more.
I know.
I was like, I was trying to think what that word means to me because I don't necessarily know like the Greek word of it. I was thinking,
what does it mean
like
to
dynamo?
you? It's like a deep
is it
question.
An anonymous dynamo? Like that sounds pretty cool, I guess. I'm not really sure what the imagery is there, but hey, it's working for them. And it worked for them in their first game. Now seeing if it works around this first dragon, setting it up.
There was no smite there, and they actually get it with Neramin taking that one up. The fight afterwards going to see the Nautilus have to flash away. Winds of War just doing a little bit of poke damage there onto Roison, but that was risky to say the least. Savero did not actually have his smite.
You are very lucky that you don't have the giant Galio while following up on something else. If FGG had a larger knockup, maybe that could have been a real snowbally fight from eSuba, who do have some very snowbally champions. When you look at the likes of a Wukong that could get a lead and get onto these carries, very dangerous for Orbit and Anonymo to be kind of like hanging themselves by a thread around that dragon. They're not really at the point where they're going to be, you know, safe on these carries, right? When you've got this Viktor who's not even a first item, yeah, you can see them building up towards something like a Seraph's a little later on. That will help them give their extra shield and disengaging from the big combo. But threatening to lose that fight and setting up quite riskily for it, it's dangerous.
Yeah, they got the dragon and they got out, so only losing a couple of summoners after the fact. So we'll say it's a success for the moment. Level 6 now for TynX, and just hit there by the Lee Sin as well. He goes over the wall. Did he see him though? I don't believe he did, as we're going to see each other now. Recognize that both junglers in that top side. Hiro will have the first rotation though, so I don't know if TynX wants to fully engage onto this, but should be able to steal the camp regardless.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Roaming up, you can see they have the Galio ult. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say they got the Hextech ultimatum as well. The Venn diagram of death as it was. We do get Hiro putting TynX into the death realm, who flashes to make sure he does not get hit by that Q. And he goes down now, Savero. He just should have just left. Yeah, he's gonna be able to get his ward jump and get himself away. I say that though. Will he end up dying anyway? One more auto is good, but will he get taken out anyway? Yes, he will. It's a trade back, a 2-for-1 trade in the end of it all, but it is eSuba looking to be aggressive.
It is, and giving gold over to the Lee Sin. Who cares? That's not the threat in the late game from Orbit and Anonymo. I love what eSuba are doing. They're using their early game power and making sure that their opponents can't just outscale them like they did the first time around. eSuba, a much better look from this early game.
Much better start for them, as we do see now the bot lane kind of roaming up here to maybe put it in a little bit of pressure, as they do have the Rift Herald. But have a look at this one here, because again, it's TynX kind of just recognizing, look, I'm level 6 now, man. I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah, and clone MVP, it's no way really that you're going to get any more burst out after the basic cooldowns are used from Savero. Camille takes things into their own hands at that point. Kicks used very early. Hero's left out to dry. This is very bread and butter for what you want to do with this combo. Just force fights around the top side when Orbit don't have enough members to respond.
Yeah. Very easy there, little kind of a trade back. I will say, bobista just kind of wanted to get that kill. Happy to see him kind of go aggressive for that. We'll have his flashback up very soon.
Not all
but
gold is even, right? You're trading one between Camille and Lee Sin. You're taking on the Camille every single time.
That being said, I did see Bo in the weekend in LEC absolutely smash on the Lee Sin. So I think it depends on who we're talking about. But maybe, you know, maybe Savero will have something to kind of say with that. Also, really random. You know what we call it? The Death Realm.
Yes, it's actually the realm of death.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not the death realm, it's the realm of death. And I feel like that's an important distinction.
It's not a book, but it is a book.
I know, I am the board game guy who's like, rules as written. That's who I am. Like, I'm just like, this is how it is now, and then I'm not accepting anything else.
I absolutely am as well, except I make some, but there is always the rule of cool. This is the thing, rules as written has the rule of cool. If it is cooler, that is the way it shall be.
I mean, when you base your entire brand on a book, then I feel like I can give you a pass.
I mean, it's like this. Okay, I'm not going to say it has like a controlling like share of my brand. It is a significant amount. The other half is, of course,
you have an emotes that says by the book. I'm pretty sure.
Look, I have been fighting. This item is really good. If you're a high kill participation champion that's going to survive a lot, it's really good value. A lot of people do not buy the item enough. Now, in this game, if you're a Viktor, it's not good because you're probably going to die quite a lot because of that engage combo. But on the
get
whole,
yourself some other books.
Buy it more.
Get yourself some non-books, you know? Other things. You don't need books. That's a terrible thing to say.
What would you replace that with? How enriching would you have your life be through item? Okay, if you're gonna have like a recreational like moment, music. Okay, what does that in terms of League of Legends items?
Ooh, what is a good thing? That's a hard one.
I can't think of an item. You've got Sona, right? But you don't have like a proper.
Sona's not an item, but she can feel like it, but she's not an item. Feel like just like one big stat book. I mean, Yuumi. Yeah, the funny thing is, Yuumi is also a book and an item.
That one kind of counts, right?
She's also just a book, even though I think of her as more of an item than anything else.
So she is actually a book. What I'm saying,
she is actually a book. Yeah, the power of Yuumi comes from the book. It doesn't actually come from Yuumi. The cat hate is actually. There you go again. Another example. The hate on the cat is actually misdirected. It should be the hate on the book.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, I think for me, you know, I'm thinking maybe the real book is the knowledge you gain throughout the way of figuring out what is a book or not. It's just learning either way. Figure it as a learning experience. There's a learning experience from Orbit the first time they went for the Dragon was it was actually quite risky. Now, you've got a couple more ultimates available this time. I think it's going to be even riskier still. eSuba, they've got themselves some vision control. They got themselves into the river first. They don't get themselves onto the Dragon just yet. Maybe afraid of the Nautilus ultimate and something like a Jinx flying through as well. Mordekaiser not coming down to the plate, but Camille is. A numbers advantage to eSuba should they choose to contest that from orbit.
Yeah, we do. See if they want to try and go for test. Honestly, they're not really positioned. There isn't a TP coming in as 5 members corral themselves around this Dragon Pit. I like this from Orbit. They're kind of saying, look, we don't need to kind of go into this. We have got plenty of time for this Mordekaiser to kind of come back up and make him a little bit more relevant. There's going to be a good hook there onto DANY, but no real combo to come back out of this. And also very, very important to recognize, they didn't have full vision, so they didn't know exactly who was going to be lurking in the shadows.
Exactly. Again, I think Orbit, they just need to just bide the time a little bit more. They know that time is not yet now. They need to get themselves a couple of items. Interestingly, we have the Leandries coming out of the Viktor. I was wondering whether we get ourselves a Rod of Ages and Ceres for hyper survivability from Roison, particularly because you have a bit more magic damage coming out from the Mordekaiser as well, so you don't have to be the sole magic damage carry on your same side. But still, goes for a little bit of the earlier spike in terms of damage from the Leandries, maybe saying, look, if I'm going to die and I just put down a Chaos Storm, it's probably enough for me. So see how much that itemization affects the way Viktor plays out the fights later.
This is the way. Roison, at least. And,
I have to say I've not been keeping up with that. Maybe I should.
I know the meme. Outside of the prequel trilogy, and obviously the original trilogy, I have not seen a single piece of Star Wars
The thing for me is because I was a huge fan. This TynX is okay.
Yeah, this is just a way overcommitted in the bot side there. That's going to be an easy kill there for TynX, and that's just really unfortunate for the side of Anonymo, just kind of getting themselves way too far forward.
And they're doing this while they don't have vision control on bot side, and the Galio ultimate is back up and available, so very dangerous. Hiro also losing in the 1v1 currently as well towards this top side dangerously, so Roison now getting closed out.
I mean, they might be able to get on top of him and really kind of hurt him down. He is going to hold on to his flash for the moment, and yeah, they just don't have the damage. This is the thing, though, the later the game goes on, the less relevant the poke damage becomes from the Galio, so you're kind of looking as in being a big engage tool, but not so much the damage to follow up.
Yeah, of course, it's a little bit different from some Galio builds of the past where you go Protobelt and then nothing. You actually have some damage now because you can go towards a bit more AP optimization with Rod of Ages, or even towards something like an Everfrost as well. Hiro taking a hard trade, losing it handily, though.
I mean, we're going to see the Death Realm come out there, and maybe you're going to see Hiro looking for a little bit of a 1v1. The Hexac Ultimatum comes out in the realm, and it's going to be killed off. That's what you talked about a little bit earlier. It's never an uneven trade, because you can always make it a 1-for-1 when the Mordekaiser's got access to his ult.
Okay, so Camille ult down, very important. Now that means that even maybe someone like Viktor can walk up to the mid-wave with a bit more safety, especially if Camille wants to start doing that classic shove in top and then roam towards another lane, be the initiating threat. With those ultimates down, you can see that Orbit, they've got themselves a bit more freedom to take jungle camps, to push out more safely where they couldn't before. Trading evenly at that point, 1-for-1 topside, feels like it's a win for Anonymo.
Yeah, it really, really does. And right now, they are kind of falling a little bit behind into the active play. It's good to see them kind of take one in that top side and in the bot lane as well. So with all the pressure that came out from that top lane, all the amount of times they kind of put in, you're going to see them put in a little bit more here as bobista just thinks he maybe has enough time to kind of go for this, and the Rakan coming as well, but you always have to remember that 1v1 potential.
Yeah, because, I mean, as soon as you see the first basic cooldowns miss, you think the player's on, you've got members on the top side of the map, surely this will work out. It just doesn't work out in the right kind of timescale. Ult comes down from Hiro, and Hiro continuing to have strong individual performances. Has been getting a number of solo kills across the group stage so far, despite the 1 and 2 record. Walks away with an important one there, teleports back into the top lane. And this Mordekaiser, as we said, can be a real thorn in the side for this combo. If they start to really draw more resources to them than is really necessary from eSuba, that starts to give more safety elsewhere on the map for Anonymo to scale up, push out, and get control.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And now, Anonymo just trying to see if they can take their own jungle. You will have the dragon in a couple of minutes. It's about 2 or 3 minutes away from the last time I believe it spawned, so definitely something in the back of their mind.
Here. 0 mana Viktor, gets a blue buff, doesn't have to care about it. Love it.
Yeah, well, he's still stacking up a tier as well, so he's even in a better spot, to be perfectly honest. But we'll see TynX finding himself kind of in a bit of a nice moment there. Does drop down the traps, but those traps are not really doing much else. The flash forward, and yeah, that's just not the right position you need to be in. And Neramin, I mean, we hyped him up a little bit coming into this game, but he's really not having a good time right now. Just kind of getting focused out 100% of the time. The Hexac Ultimatum are down for the Nautilus to try and deal with him. They're going to have a nice kickback. It's 4 people topside, though. Roison trying to see if he can do something. They go back in on the Q, but the Shield Duran is great. And bobista stays alive. No, he does not. Never mind. DANY, what was that? That was atrocious to jet over the wall. Loses his flash and loses his ultimate. Do they look to try and go for this one here? It's hard to re-engage into this fight, but it's all scrappy and it's still an even game.
It is a bit of an overstep from Neramin, as we were saying right at the start of this. I think they thought they were more safe than they were. They had a fair amount of vision on top side, but TynX manages to get around the vision line, flashes away, but isn't enough to keep them safe. As soon as you kind of get caught in the initial engage from Jinx, this is likely what's going to happen. Bit of an overstay, though, from eSuba after this point, because despite getting that 80 carry away, you've got to deal with that tower. You're not killing that at first, and Lee Sin, despite not having, the most impact in this game so far, still early game champion. Holds on to that Q very well there to make sure that the bobista aren't just hookshot away from that initial play. I think what happens with Danny, there's Oh, that's...
Yeah,
what that is
yeah.
a flash over the wall. I
don't like to call people out, but
I can kill them with my ult before their Q lines. No, it's just a bit of a misclick over the wall. Doesn't quite manage to flat flash the wall, and yeah, loses those resources for the sadness of that one.
Yeah, it's a little sad. It's a little unfortunate the way kind of things go. As,
everyone gets one, okay?
Yeah, everyone gets one. And look, I don't like to completely...
this has happened before, though.
I mean, TynX doesn't really want to go for that fight just yet because Hiro is in the vicinity. Not the Jinx this time around, is the Mordekaiser. But yeah, look, regardless of how the fights are going, it's still 2 dragons to 1 in favor of Anonymo. It's still a 2-dragon lead as well. And of course, the gold is dead even. So this isn't a bad position to be in. This, however, is because Hiro going to try and see if he can maybe go for something here. He does have the Hexac ultimate to come out, but he's going to try and go for the 1v1 now. And bobista has nowhere to go. He's got nowhere to be, and he's trying to get this one going. But FGG, he's just left as a passerby, a bystander, just to try and see if he can go for it. Hiro is doing so much. It's a 1v3, and he's coming out on top. He's doing everything. One more auto would be good enough, but no. FGG says that's enough, and we'll take you down eventually.
Oh, Hiro plays that so well. Great discipline, holding the ultimate so he can get it at the best possible time, make sure that FGG wastes the knockup. And this is, again, the real thing which starts breaking apart eSuba's combo. If this Mordekaiser can soak up so much on the side lane, you don't get to play it for free. Q lands onto Danny, not going to be followed up on, but Orbit and Anonymo, they're starting to really benefit from Hiro once again, getting some individual advantages.
Again, Hiro just kind of showing why this Mordekaiser is so good into so many different things. Even though the early game, you can see that Camille had the advantage onto him. Now, kick back there onto Warszi. You can see that he can get an ult away. He should be just fine, but now you've had to use that ultimate defensively to get yourself away. But the hook shot, wall shot comes in. They're going to try and jump onto Roison. They will just about be able to take him out. There's a good ultimate from the Nautilus. You can see bobista nearly going down. These rockets are flying. Everyone's going low, but nobody's getting excited on the side of Orbit.
I wonder if there could have been an ultimate cancel from the Viktor ult there. It does cancel some of those channel times, but not able to use that ultimate in that situation from the Viktor, either before that play or after they got engaged onto. So we see about at least walking away with that kill. You can see again the threat onto these carries if they are out of position. Orbit and Anonymo not getting everything for free. However, gold is even. Typically when the gold is even, when you've got one team with better scaling carries, particularly with that Viktor over the Galio, if they're able to put down their damage, and the Mordekaiser, as we've been seeing. Another hook on this top side, though. Let's stop talking about that.
Yeah, we're going to see another kill come in. The Hexac ultimatum is good, but is it good enough to keep him alive? No, it is not. But the Cyclone is decent to try and keep everyone in the same spot. TP comes in off of Hiro and put him into the realm of death. They're going to kill off the tower just as he tries to run away. As I said, the tower's still going, and he's taking a lot of damage there. Hiro tries to go back in, does the Wukong, and is not able to do anything else off it. FGG just felt like he just really couldn't have any kind of impact on that. It's all kind of falling apart for eSuba, but like you said, they went for the late game scale, and they're looking to be scrappy, but it's just kind of going better for the side of Orbit.
It is, they've got this combo which wants to fire off with the Camille, getting onto those targets, with TynX getting onto those targets, stopping these backline, long-range scaling carries, doing a lot of damage. They're not able to do that right now. The Mordekaiser becoming increasingly more threatening as well. And we've seen this Zeri, despite Zeri being a champion which has been quite prominent in the meta at this point. I think it was fair to say that one, of course. Not really being able to impact these fights. Feels like eSuba are almost playing without an AD carry when they're diving forwards. They're going beyond the Zeri's range. And, fighting right into kind of the brawling front line of Orbit and Anonymo, which can chew up this Wukong and chew up this Camille.
Yeah, again, look, TP's coming in, immediately answered there. bobista just finds himself kind of a no man's land, and because he gets hit by the traps, he has to fully commit.
Yeah, because of course trap stocks and stock dashes nowadays, bobista not really able to get onto those key targets. The reason that hook looks a little bit awkward is because, of course, the Realm of Death comes out. Hiro, once again, doing a heck of a lot of work. really shows you how dangerous it is for some of these engaging champions. We talked about the Mordekaiser being on the side lanes and being very important for the map state, how you play around side lanes, vision control. But when you get into these team fights as well, Hiro can really stop some of this engage, but he's not here right now to stop Savero.
Oh, nice kickback though, stops bobista from locking him down, but someone else shall be locked down in the end. So Nautilus has nowhere else to be. 5-man strong in this mid lane. They're looking to try and jump into the mid lane and try and really take down this Jinx. They will get their man, but they will lose their jungler. Now DANY has to flash away because he's in a little bit of a pinch as the rest of Orbit move themselves forward. This is the thing, you've invested so much just to get those 2 picks. It's a 2-for-1 trade, so it's definitely in your favor, but what can you get after it? I don't think there's going to be a loss.
I think they can keep, because they managed to keep eSuba on the map for quite a while. These resets are going to come in a little bit later than they wanted to. Does mean that potentially Dragon is on the table. But actually going to go get themselves over to a couple of resets themselves. It just means that eSuba can't stay on the map, can't get themselves some free vision. Roison feels very happy at this moment to kind of stick around, knowing that the Camille ult's down, knowing that the Galio ult is down as well. Allows a couple of waves of pressure, and importantly, it just means that eSuba, they don't get control of the map.
No, they do not, and is going to lose the soul point here to Orbit as well, and it's going to be curious to see again. It's, I won't lie, it's hard to figure out the relative power of champions when you don't know what items they have. However,
yeah, I think we might have inspired.
I know there's a Runans now on Neramin because he's hitting out multiple rockets.
It's great. This is now the solo queue experience.
Contextual queue.
It's like when you're not pressing tab in solo queue to see what's happening on the other side. That one's obvious enough, though, as you're saying. And as you said, like, just in terms of the champions on the table, you could look at this timestamp, you look at the gold at the top. I mean, Orbit are going to have more items and more damage to bring to bear. They also have themselves those dragons, but they can't afford to get easily engaged onto like this. Bobista around the side. Yeah, they're going to look for a fight here, coming straight into Neramin, but can they burst him out in time? They're using an awful lot of CC, and they will eventually take him down, but can you escape after the back end of this? Bobista getting caught out. No flash on DANY, remember, as he got chased down by the Lee Sin and kicked into oblivion. This Nautilus is just standing in front of everybody. This was a 5v4 in favor of eSuba, and they are getting tranced into the ground right now. They have to run for their lives, because unlike the last one, they lose a 2-for-1. Yeah, ripped out root and stem. They go on to the Jinx, but they don't manage to close down Roison, who just drops down the Chaos Storm. Has the Leandries, it's higher damage than something like the Rod of Ages at this point in the game. That burn damage doing so much, and even without Neramin, Neramin has felt like the pinata, the sacrificial lamb. Kind of the death of the party, sadly, in this one for them. But they don't need to fight for this Baron. TP coming in. That's going to be Bobista coming back off the top of this one. The AD carry is only coming back onto the map right now. These are low health bars, and you don't have the AD to really kind of burst down this Baron. That's the big thing. Roison doing enough, but he's got plenty of mana to try and take the fight afterwards. Here we go. The shield is around on the backside of this one here. The Nautilus, the first one down. The Lee Sin secures the Baron just before he dies. Hiro taking a 1v1 against TynX, but now he has to flash away because he has nowhere to be. They went for the massive Hiro play, and they've lost absolutely everyone. Only Neramin, who's able to kind of keep himself just about alive. But at the end of it all, it's eSuba equaling like the gold. That is a big overstep from Orbit. It felt like they had themselves a window to take that winning fight in the mid lane, maybe use the Leandries to burn down that Baron, but you're right, they didn't have the AD carry, and without Neramin there, despite him dying in a lot of the fights, would have been really helpful in finishing off that objective. Can't play around that, so now eSuba have themselves a bit of an extended time while those death timers tick down from Orbit and Anonymo to run over the map. See how, of course, this came across in that replay. Again, AD carries aren't here. Smite fight is always going to be won because you've got that Mordekaiser threatening that ult, taking the smite out of the equation from TynX. But because you don't have Mordekaiser being a frontline, being a damage source, and of course stopping people getting onto the likes of Roison and Savero around that Baron, means that you just can't stick out the fight. No, you really can't. And look, Neramin finds himself finally not dying off and getting himself killed. I'm going to guess he's probably on like about 4, maybe 5 deaths at this point in the game. He's been heavily focused. I like to believe in object permanence. If I can't see it, I don't have to believe in it. Perception is reality. That's just how these things are. It's, and I have rolled a natural 1. I see nothing. I am, in fact, blind. Anyway, just the surgery did not work as well as I thought it would. But we are going to kind of come back into this one here. You will have the dragon spawning up. Viktor could do laser eye surgery, or is that just a little bit too much? Is that not a special? They're different lasers. The TP going to be coming in here from Savero. Good kickback there, as yeah, you're not really in a position to kind of like get anything else off of this Warszi, but I like the confidence, like the idea that you're coming in there. But yeah, he's pretty tanky as well.
the way general build as well does give him a lot of survivability, so he's not going to be in any danger
Oh.
by doing that.
Also, Galio had a couple of buffs to his W in terms of the damage reduction as well, based on the amount of MR that you've got, so it helps you a little bit more. Czypsy walking into this bot side jungle, trying to get some vision control back. Roison not in the safest moment there. TynX very dangerous at this point in the game as well, getting towards mid to late game. Wukong is a damage threat in themselves, and there are Galio and Camille ults available. Orbit, they don't want to over-aggress here.
They do not. TP going to be coming in.
Oh,
Looks like they
Warszi's
want the
got
aggression
there. He
right
got
now.
ults.
Yeah, I was going to say, so not going to be able to kind of come in on top of this one here. They're going to try and jump an FGG, and he will be shut down. That was a 700 gold shutdown over to the Lee Sin right before this Baron spawns in a couple more, 40 more seconds, but now TynX is in a lot of trouble. He's going to be forcing his own smite to try and get away, but a flash kick, and he's got no decoy, which means they know they're hitting the real one. Finally gets it back, but can he get the Cyclone to do the damage? That is the real question. Neramin dies one more time as DANY looks to skate his way around there. It's going to be the Galio ultimate, the shields around all the three people. Can he be enough for DANY? Double, triple, and he's popping off. We're seeing a Zeri moment right now. It's going to be a Savero to try and maybe take that 1v1, but Hiro's on a 1v1 of his own. Bobista gets himself out just before he dies, and a quadra kill comes out for DANY.
Chasing down for the Penta, not going to stick around to find out though. Doesn't want to lose his own life, because he's the real point of power left on the map. Huge play from eSuba. Bit of a difficult moment for them as Galio was not on the right side of the map. Warszi not able to ult into the play. Felt like they had all the tools to do so, but weren't in the right position to put Orbit into the worst spot they could do. But they managed to just about survive, just about get away with their own AD carry, running away from that play. And as we said, you know, this whole late game will be about, can these late game carries on either side either survive the engage on the side of Orbit and Anonymo, or actually join the play from the likes of DANY. DANY actually escapes the initial play from this one. FG not quite as lucky in that case, but he does take up a lot of these big cooldowns. Nautilus ult, not there actually now for DANY to have to worry about. Blows that ghost early, sure, doesn't have that tool for the rest of the fight, but DANY's not getting focus. Kick is used onto someone else. Nautilus ult already been used, but Bobista gets to close down the AD carry. DANY, really good recognition of knowing what tools are available to use against him and what defensive things can come in to help him clean up these fights.
Absolutely, and look, you know, aggressively flashing in, recognizing, look, the CC down, they've used everything offensively that can kill me, especially when Hiro goes into that realm of death against Bobista. He knows after that point, yeah, look, I'm going to be fine. There's no one who can kind of take me out, and I can still do the DPS. We come back in, it's 21-13. It's a lot of kills for eSuba. They do get the dragon off that as well. It's going to be the 5th dragon of the game, and they're second, but they're only about 2,000 gold ahead. It's not a million miles away, and we'll see what kind of relevance that has. Roison going to get jumped on here. He's completely out of position, but can the Jinx kind of help him out? That's going to be a lot for the Chaos Storm. They're going to use the Galio ultimate to try and keep everybody up and alive. Bobista just gets himself with the hook shot, wall shot, gets himself out, but TynX is now dead. DANY over the wall, and DANY might be looking for a bit of a cleanup crew. They're going to try and kill him off. A kickback. He's in a bit of a bounce house right now. He's not able to do the damage, and you can see he's so desperate. He wants to kill the Mordekaiser. Eventually, he will go down, but now you can see with the damage from the Lee Sin, they've got this in the bag. It's going to be a 1v1. The Galio versus the Lee Sin. Can it be enough between these two players? It's a 4-for-4 trade for the moment. The Winds of War do not land. Does he land the Q? He does. He goes in. He's going to land, though, the Justice Punch, and another kick comes in. It's a 5-for-4. It's an ace for the side of Orbit, but it's all over the place.
Put a red filter on the screen. There's blood everywhere. Only Savero lives to tell the tale as the ground is splattered by 9 individuals falling. Starts off with one of these kind of, again, bread and butter combo from Bobista and crew to get on top of the Viktor, who's sat alone in the side lane. Teammates are not close enough. Doesn't have something like a Zhonya status as well to get out of that Camille ultimate. Puts down that ultimate, but that is the grand contribution which he has to that play. And unlike earlier in this game, we're not really talking about Hiro running away with the first part of the fight, taking up all of these cooldowns. It's the Viktor that had to eat that, because Viktor's not had that same degree of safety, nor, of course, Neramin on the Jinx. It makes it much harder for Orbit to walk away with this fight, like, hugely advantageously. They're very lucky that they managed to close down some carries that overwrites and still have enough damage left over, despite their carries dying quite early into the fight.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Savero just recognized, look, if I land the cube, I dodge out the Winds of War, I'm in a pretty damn good spot. So
I can do things.
I am Lee Sin. Yeah, I'd love to know exactly what way he's kind of going for. He must have his Black Cleaver at minimum now, if not building up towards to a Guardian Angel, you would imagine. But wait and see what kind of goes. They go pretty much dead even.
Did you ever see any of those montage plays where people kind of like try and put as many active items onto stuff like Gragas and Lee Sin as possible, like flash, but then Prowler's Claws like 3 ways across the screen? Absolutely fantastic. Maybe
it's like my favorite. Yeah, like one of my favorite old school videos. It's like I am the fast with Jin.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
like it's just so good. Just like how fast can he go? And it is kind of absurd how fast he can go, to be perfectly honest. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but definitely very fast, especially when he gets that fourth shot. But we're starting to hit pretty big level points, I should say. We're nearly at level 16 here for the 2 AD carries. Has been hit by DANY right there. You are at level 17, if not more than for the most of the solo laners. So this is a moment where ultimate cooldowns are very low. There's a couple of opportunities where if you blow a massive ultimate, it's not that relevant in the the grand scheme of the game.
Yeah, sadly, you don't have like 30 ultimates from like a Nautilus. That'd be really nice for Orbit to have a low cooldown. Onyx again, grouped up members.
Could have all the ability house in the world though. We don't know. We'll have to just assume.
It could have absolutely everything. Cosmic Drive Nautilus. I'm here for it. Back to the DANY AP Nautilus mid base. Back onto the items, and we do finally get to see what is on the board. It's a bit more tankiness. There, we'll recap that as this Baron is falling. Those items, what can they do with them?
What can they do with them? That is the question. TynX and DANY taking this one low. I don't think they know that Orbit have vision. I think they're just trying to see like, oh, you didn't land it on the Baron. You don't know exactly what the HP was. They just kind of figure themselves out. They back themselves away from the Baron. It is 30 seconds till the Dragon spawns. That will again be the Cloud Soul. And the funny thing is, I know it gets a little bit of not as much priority, but you think of something like a Mordekaiser, when he ults and wants to get on top of you, that soul is huge in a 1v1 situation.
Yeah, obviously it's less important to someone who's ulted by the Camille. Move speed isn't going to get you out of that Hextech ultimatum, but particularly as you're saying, for that Mordekaiser, maybe allows Hiro, the chef at the top lane, to do something special. Has flash, has ult.
They don't know this is happening. They don't know this is happening. They don't see it, and now they probably know, but it's just a little too late. You'll lose the Baron, you'll gain the soul. So it's a trade back of a permanent buff versus a temporary one, but what can you do with that temporary buff? That's the question.
Now,
They
obviously,
used the Chaos Storm on that.
Did to burn it down, and maybe that helps them get out, because again, they can't afford to get engaged onto. DANY could rush across the wall.
Oh, FGG. Immediately Neramin flashes away. He cannot get caught away, like you mentioned. And it is no one going to be going down, but a soul for a Baron. You've got a couple of minutes now here for the side of eSuba to make this one work for you.
Yeah, now, in that last play on the Baron, there was every chance that Orbit could have just almost had a guaranteed Baron, actually, in terms of steal. You can flash over the Mordekaiser, ult away the jungler, you can then fly in with your Lee Sin as well. Very likely that they could look for a steal, but I think that again shows their thought process. Take the permanent buff of that soul, soak up that Baron as much as we can. You don't want to put yourselves out of position against eSuba. They choose to play away from them on the map, burn down that dragon, keep themselves safe. Question is, can they continue to keep themselves safe? They have 4 items on a 9, 2, and 5 Lee Sin. That is going to be incredibly potent at trying to clean up some of these fights, kick someone out, kick someone into the fight as the situation depends on it. It's not just Orbit that needs to keep themselves safe in the playmakers now. There's a lot of gold, a lot of damage on Orbit as well.
Funny enough as well, we haven't seen anyone pay the QSS tax just yet here onto the Mordekaiser. Hasn't had that kind of level of influence as we go for bobista trying to jump in on top of this backside. They will get Roison straight away, and that's a lot of your damage taken off of this. DANY looking for some more kills, and eSuba looking to try and get himself going on top of this one here. We are going to have a couple of resets coming in there. 3-man crawl back on the Death's Grasp, and they're looking to try and kill off all of these low health members. DANY kiting back so well, but they lose the Monkey King. The Wukong has gone down, not quite going to land the zap. And eSuba get themselves a 2-for-2 trade. They get the tower as well, but so difficult to make this one work. Hiro not quite getting caught out there for a second, but you've lost a little bit of your mobility now. You got to make sure you're not getting caught out on the backside of this play.
Okay, there could be a teleport back in from the Galio to protect his low health members. Warszi not going to pull the trigger on that one, though. We have another fight where one of the carries at least escapes. That seems to be the break point in a lot of these plays. Can you see that close down both carries early from Orbit and Anonymo? Ultra Liga, second seed, looking to get themselves to that 2-2 margin. If they were to lose this game, it gives them a really slim shot after that point of trying to get past Unicorns Love Sexy Edition to exit this group. This is why it's getting oh so tense, because each one of these fights could see these teams into a much more positive or negative scenario for the rest of the day's games.
Absolutely, and it's going to be so difficult. You can see how fine the lines are. If the Zeri gets a couple more autos off, if the Jinx is able to hit anybody on these low health bars, it's just reset city, and you're going to be in such a bad situation. If that zap lands on the backside of DANY, it's a hell of a different situation to kind of come into this. But Baron buff has going to be wearing off in the next couple of seconds. You're kind of coming into critical mass for a lot of these players. And I will say, Roison now has himself a stopwatch, so he's going to be feeling a little bit more safe.
As soon as the items came back, I was thinking, that is an incredibly important buy, because one of the few ways you can outplay Camille or the Galio if you're already stuck inside it is just by going into stasis. You can go into stasis, flash away. That could be a game-defining one-use active from Roison. Didn't have it earlier in the game, but oh so important to have it now for the late-game fights.
Reset. Bring ourselves back in. It's 2 minutes 30 till the Baron, 2 minutes 40.
Again, this is going to be a 1v1.
This is not a 1v1 until right now, as we can see bobista using his stopwatch, but now it's a 4v1 as he comes out of it. The Hextech ultimate is going to be good as well. You can see the Hiro wants to try and put down that damage, but they committed a teleport and they committed the stopwatch to make sure that that play came in.
They committed everyone towards bot side as well, but with death time is this long, very, very important. Now maybe you can look to go further forward into the base. You don't have the Camille up, very important to know, because you can't lock one of these carries way out of position and try and dive on top of them. Chaos Storm used to just clear the wave.
That's smart there. That gives him another 30 seconds till that next wave kind of comes in. You can see it's way down the wave. So honestly, I think that just kind of makes it 1 kill for the stopwatch and the teleport. I don't think there's really much else you can get there for the side of eSuba. They'll probably just get themselves back out on the map, take away as many resources as they can, and continue to look for these big kind of pick-offs in the side lane.
Yeah, we're into the end game now, the late game, all of these items being built up, and very long death timers. I think it's very good awareness from the Ultra League, a second seed, to say, look, just chuck that Viktor ultimate onto the wave, clear it out, walk away, make sure that they can't take as much as possible, and don't give them a chance to engage. Roison builds up a full Void Staff after that back as well. That's going to be on the table. See a Lord Dominic's regards coming in from Neramin. The damage on these carries, should they survive the initial engage, is going to be ludicrous. Of course, the same can be said of that Zeri, but you've got 2 of these late game carries on the side of Orbit and Anonymo. eSuba, their next engage will have to hit the mark.
For eSuba, you can even, you mentioned DANY on these carries. He's got himself, of course, the Immortal Shield Bow, but also the Bloodthirster. And you look on the other side, it's the Kraken Slayer and the Lord Dominic's Regards. You can clearly see the difference in terms of how these fights want to be played here by these 280 carries. Neramin kind of focusing on everyone else to keep him alive, get that kite in using that Nautilus, and of course the Viktor to his best of abilities to try and make sure he can keep putting out rockets. Whereas on the other side, DANY, as we've seen many times with Zeris throughout the season, just want to be right in on top of your face. They want to try and make sure they're putting in as much DPS as possible and being their own kind of setup and own carries.
So, Elder spawning in 40 seconds, that could be a huge moment for this game. Of course it is. Every time an Elder is spawned, the game tends to flow with it. There is no vision control from Orbit and Anonymo towards this bot side of the map. They have 1 or 2 wards, but the danger for them now is that if they go to contest this dragon, they're not going to have the vision to spot bobista coming from a flank engage. He's currently going to be spotted on this bot side right now. But this is all about a vision game. It's about flanks, it's about angles, it's about can you reach these carries.
His passive move speed as well coming in from Orbit is just so powerful as well. Just being able to kind of move around the map as quick as you possibly like.
Rotation speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the Rift will help as well, but that's going to be the Dragon starting up now. They do know it's been started here, so Orbit need to kind of bring themselves into the gravitational pull of this Elder Drake. Now eSuba bringing it down to about 2/3 HP. That's going to be Warszi's Banshees burned out of that one. TynX in the pit. And FGG on a fantastic flank, but they know he's there. They saw him on a little bit of a pink ward, so they're not quite ready to just go fully force into him. FGG almost getting taken out by laser. He's forced to flash away and uses Sorelius. That's really big right there. They're going to try and jump onto the Galio. They do not land the zap, and Warszi kind of tanking up absolutely everything. TynX getting brought into the death realm. They're going to try and burn down the dragon. They will be able to get it. They're going to the super late game. The Camille takes down the Nautilus. Can they take down Hiro as well? Yes, they can. But now the dragon starts to do what it does best, which is just burn down these health bars. Roison chasing down Warszi. It is only going to be a 2-for-2 trade at the end of it all. And Baron coming up as well. You imagine it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for them to be able to defend their base now that they have the Elder Dragon.
Yeah, you can see what eSuba have done. They've just tried to push waves into the enemy base. Make sure that Orbit can't just go close down the game, but they're against the Elder.
Yeah, they're going to go in onto DANY as well. They get the GA, they're going to get the Immortal Shield Bow, the kick back, the Q! And DANY goes and loses his GA as well. There's just so much damage, he just cannot survive it, even with all the sustain in the world. And that's just a fantastic play there from the Lee Sin of Orbit.
Knew he had the Elder, knew that eSuba were on absolute sirens blaring across their own team because they've lost that Elder. The only thing they can do is try and push in a couple of waves and stop Orbit from ending the damn game. It would send eSuba to a 0-4 and out of the tournament in the group stage. basically impossible to get past at that point. I believe actually with the 0-2 head-to-head versus Orbit and Anonymo, there would be no way for them to climb back in towards the knockouts. Teleports coming in, Orbit trying to put them to the sword.
Yeah, this is it, 41 minutes into the game. We can see now Hiro kind of going straight in to try and get someone out. There's a good cyclone and Roison is dead, so they're trying to just burst these carries out before anything else can happen. But you can see when you have a full item Jinx, there's just not a lot you can do. Neramin has been focused all game long. He wasn't allowed to play League of Legends, but he scaled and he kept pushing forward and he finally ends it all off with a quadra kill, gets him up to a positive KDA. They want to give the Penta, they want to try and get him just as good as they were given. And it ends up being another win there for the side of Orbit. 2-2 for them, and eSuba fall to 0-4.
Late game to start us off in today's proceedings. eSuba will be bowing out of the tournament with that loss. Orbit and Anonymo, though, they keep themselves in contention at the very least. Of course, a number of games to go through today and no easy opposition for them. LDLC and Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition up on the docket for them as their games later on today. But I mean, it's a very different approach from eSuba to try and take down the Ultra Liga team, trying to say, okay, we tried to fight late game with late game in that first game, trying to play Viktor, play that Zeri against the Seraphine and the Xayah. They tried a bit more early game playmaking, a bit more engaged to say, okay, maybe we can get onto these carries, maybe we can play the side lane. But it's not like Orbit and Anonymo didn't have tools to deal with that as well.
No, absolutely agree. And I think that, look, it happened at the same time as last one. You went to late game, you tried to go for scaling, didn't work out, unfortunately for you. And now you're 0-4. I'm not sure the exact kind of setup, but it is definitely not a moment or two really for eSuba. It's not been a tournament to remember for them, and they are struggling.
They are. And, I mean, this has been a crazy late game scenario to start things off, where if you're going to work out these wrinkles on stage, at least you've had 40 minutes to settle those nerves. For Orbit and Anonymo now, I think this is a big one to bolster the fact that they have committed to their style of play. They had some of their spice in that top side. It wasn't the Gnar from Hiro which won it this time, it was the Mordekaiser, something a bit more niche. Of course, we've seen that in many years past, but the fact that they could kind of, again, stick to their own guns, play their own style of play, they brought in from their own region and make it succeed here, at least for these two games against eSuba, gives them hope to bring that against other opponents in the group later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe we have the mid laner on the side of Orbit and Anonymo coming into as a Roison. First of all, congratulations. You get the first win of the day. Obviously, you're coming in here today with a 1-2 scoreline. Have there been a lot of changes in your guys' kind of mentality after the first round robin coming into the second one?
Hello, first of all. Thank you for the game. The game was pretty nice. I think there was not that many changes because there was only like 1 day of break, right? So we just like made sure to refocus, prepare some stable drafts and go from there, right?
And I'd love to talk about those stable drafts you were talking about, right? Because it feels like actually both yourself and your top laner Hiro as well feel like you've taken quite a lot of liberties with the meta, tried to explore things. How do you feel you've been supported with your champion pool to kind of decide what you want to play for your team?
Yeah, I think obviously me and Hiro have a lot of pocket picks, right? So it's pretty good that we can play around it as a team. I think we showed like some interesting drafts in first round. Obviously, we have like entire season of practice. So we're on the same page right now, and it's just about showing it against really strong teams, right?
Obviously, you come out now with 2-2 scoreline, much stronger than you were obviously 1 game ago. But coming up against Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition, is there anything in particular you're looking for? Any particular player you maybe guys are thinking that you need to sort that out before anything else, or is it all kind of keep it a secret before the game?
Obviously, I can't let too much slide before the game, right? But we can know that like their mid jungle is pretty strong. Usually, the game goes through them. I think the last game we played against them, we didn't play good early game, but the idea about team fighting was good. So I think it's just about keeping the early game more stable and getting to the stage of the game where we are like the most comfortable.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again, and of course, good luck with the rest of your games. We look forward to seeing how you guys do with the last few games.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
There you go, he's confident. He's going to see us soon. He's going to be able to be on this
Good.
broadcast
I'm
again.
glad.
He knows he's
Have
going
the
to win.
confidence.
Got to get the confidence going for him. But yeah, I mean, look, it was a scrappy affair to say the least, but it's almost as like it was a replay of the first game where it said, right, let's go late game scaling, let's go team fights. And you know, Orbit have shown multiple times now that they are very good when it comes to the team fights.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the one thing which was told about this team above all others. If you let them go late game, they're very confident playing those scaling team fights back to kind of like front to back. And they have these intricate picks as well, something a bit more pocket picky, as we were saying, which can break apart enemy team compositions. The Mordekaiser, I love that pick in this game. It's a great pick against that Camille Galio. We saw them hovering something like the Olaf and Draft as well. That also would have been fine, trying to play the 1vx scenarios. And having these solo laners, we just talked to Roison as well. He played a really good Seraphine game in the first time of playing against these teams as well. And just having that extra flexibility and the confidence and that kind of assured nature to say, look, we're playing our style of game, we can make these team fights work. I really like to see that. And coming into this last half of the second round robin, you have to be a little bit afraid now as Unicorns and LDLC. These teams have really started to show that they can team fight with the best of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say Neramin probably happy that this game was over just because he was so hard focused. He got a nice little, excuse me, he got almost a pentakill towards the end, but yeah, I mean, like, it was just such a difficult game for him, and like, I can't really blame him. Like, we talked about it in draft as well. Like, it did feel like eSuba came in with a game plan, and you know, got to give credit to them. They said, look, we have plenty of engaged, and look, you know, my mantra for my house is not going to come true today, that he who has engages wins, but it did feel like a lot of these composition, or a lot of these fights were on a knife's edge because they had so many ways of just kind of locking people down.
Absolutely, and that's why it did have to go hyper late game, because these team fights were obviously very, very messy. The engage was always making sure that someone died from Orbit, and most of the time, up until the hyper late game, that was enough. But even when you took down that Viktor or the Jinx, normally the other one would survive to do just enough damage for the cleanup crew to come through, like Savero in this one play as well, just about managing to clean up. And that was a heck of a good Lee Sin game as well. Can't let that go for granted.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You were like, oh, you know, you don't care if the goal goes to the Lee Sin. I was like, it depends. It depends. And I think Savero definitely showed that he is one of those Lee Sins that you cannot be letting getting fed.
Absolutely. And then, of course, it came down to Elder Fight shenanigans and the likes of it. We had all of the late game on display in this one. See if the other teams will let that happen. Of course, and then if you, one of the big things to come out of that has been, hey, got to make sure that early game's a little bit more stable. I would actually feel that question to a number of other teams as well. Either in terms of, hey, you've got a good early game, what are you doing with your mid game, things start to fall apart, or actually your team fighting is really good. Just got to sort out those first few minutes of the game, trying to do that mix and match across tables in the group.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a curious way to see how the day kind of brings themselves out, but we are going to send it to a break, and when we return, we are going to have the Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition versus LDLC. We'll see if there's still a little bit of spice left in this group. We'll see you guys very soon.